Did you know that the government literally has a law preventing rich families from hiding money in trusts forever? And it's been on the books for centuries? It's called the Rule Against Perpetuities. And once you understand it, you'll never look at estate planning the same way again. We're talking about one of the oldest legal mechanisms in existence, designed specifically to make sure that at some point, a real human being has to own the assets and face the taxman. Think of it like a cosmic timer buried inside every trust, quietly ticking until the government gets its cut. Here's the tension that makes this so fascinating. Wealthy families set up trusts thinking they've found the perfect way to preserve generational wealth, only to discover the law has anticipated their every move. The Rule Against Perpetuities is essentially the government saying, nice try, but no. Now let's unpack why this rule even exists, because the reasoning is actually pretty logical once you see it. From an income tax perspective, a trust still pays taxes along the way. So the IRS isn't completely left out of the party, but the real concern is the estate tax. The estate tax is where the government collects a significant chunk when wealth transfers from one generation to the next. And if assets stay locked in a trust indefinitely, that transfer never technically happens. So the government built a legal forcing mechanism to ensure that eventually, flesh and blood human hands have to hold those assets and face the tax consequences. Here's how the actual rule works. And yes, it is as oddly specific as it sounds. When a trust is created, you identify the youngest living person connected to that trust at the time of its creation. And the trust must fully distribute its assets 21 years after that person passes away. So imagine a newborn baby is identified at the time a trust is created, and that baby lives to be 90 years old, meaning the trust could theoretically run for over 100 years before it's forced to distribute. That's not a loophole, that's a canyon, and yet the law still eventually closes it. Now here's where it gets layered, because every state has its own version of this rule, with its own timelines, exceptions, and philosophical interpretations of what perpetuity even means. Some states have actually abolished or dramatically relaxed the rule, which is why you hear about dynasty trusts being formed in places like South Dakota or Nevada, jurisdictions that decided to play a very different game. But here's the irony that should make you smirk a little. Even the states that loosened the rule did so within a framework that the federal government still watches very carefully. You can delay the inevitable, but the core idea that assets cannot float outside the taxable system forever remains the gravitational law of estate planning. A common misconception is that wealthy families who use trusts are somehow cheating the system entirely. And while the advantages are real, the system was designed with these rules precisely because lawmakers anticipated the strategy. The Rule Against Perpetuities is the government's long game, patient, structural, and ultimately unavoidable. What this means practically for anyone thinking about estate planning is that you need to understand the timeline you're working with. Because a trust is not a permanent disappearing act, it's a temporary shelter with an expiration date baked into the law. Knowing that expiration date and planning around it strategically is where real estate and financial advisors earn their fees. The lesson from history is that the families who thrive across generations are not the ones who tried to outsmart the tax code entirely, but the ones who used every legal tool available while staying disciplined and working within the system. Moderation, patience, and working with the right professionals beats the fantasy of the perfect loophole every single time. At the end of the day, the Rule Against Perpetuities is a reminder that the government plays a very long game. And the smartest move you can make is to plan with that reality in mind rather than against it. Discipline, proper structuring, and the right guidance will always outperform the illusion of a permanent escape. And whether you're thinking about protecting generational wealth, investing in real estate, or just trying to understand how the system works, the most powerful thing you can do is get educated and get started. Check out our links in the description below, where we can help you get started in real estate investing, connect you with home contracting work, and find the right lenders for your situation.